a softwood lumber deal. I know that we have been pushing hard for that, and I want to make sure that the government continues to work hard to get a softwood lumber dealer sooner rather than later. So with that, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
The honourable member will have 4 minutes remaining for his speech following question period. Statements by members. The honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise as the Member of Parliament for Sunnyvale to honour our beloved Canadian actor and trailer park boy, John Dunsworth, who passed away this week. He cared about those around him and showed it by mentoring others and working hard to rid Nova Scotia of VLTs. He loved theatre and performed in many productions on Halifax's Neptune Theatre stage. John believed in the Nova Scotia film industry and those working in it. From building stages, running his casting company, to appearing in countless films and television productions, Mr. Speaker, he did it all. But he's best known as Dartmouth's own Mr. Jim Leahy on the Trailer Park Boys. An epic trailer park supervisor we will never forget. And as Mr. Leahy would say, we'll have a little drinky poo for you tonight, my friend. Thank you.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My favourite time of the year is just 2 short months away. With the Christmas season just around the corner, Canadians from across the country will be spending special time with their families and friends. Christmas is a time to reflect on our many blessings in Canada while also celebrating the birth of Jesus, the Saviour for all the world. Some timeless words from Luke that have given all mankind joy and hope over the centuries. Then the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all people. For there is born unto you this day in the city of David a Saviour, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign unto you. You will find a babe wrapped in swaddling clothes lying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men." May the Christmas story of this humble birth in a stable remind us of the real hope given to all of us. From our Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies family to everyone across Canada, Merry Christmas.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, I cannot tell you how proud I am of my friend Guy Larouche, Mayor of Roberval, for having risen to the challenge of hosting the prestigious Naturalia Conference for 2017 in his magnificent city of Roberval. This is the most important natural resources and major projects forum in Canada. I am proud to have given my full support to this extraordinary adventure that is wrapping up today. I am in awe of the success of this event and the quality of the 650 participants who made Lac Saint-Jean shine and showcased our natural resources sector champions. Not only our forestry industry, but also our aluminum industry, mining sector, and future technology sector were extraordinarily well represented. Congratulations to all the organizers for their amazing success. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, Diwali is the festival of lights, signifying the triumph of good over evil, knowledge over ignorance, and hope over despair. Diwali represents the time of new beginnings, a time of optimism and of renewal. Diwali is celebrated by Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, and Buddhists around the world, including in my riding of Burnaby South. During this special time, families, friends, and communities come together to celebrate, enjoy entertainment, and of course, enjoy delicious food. In Canada, celebrating Diwali enriches our multicultural society as people of different ancestries and religions take time to share their traditions and contribute to Canada's ever-growing diversity. On behalf of my NDP colleagues, to all those celebrating Diwali across Canada, I wish you and your family happiness, prosperity, and peace. Diwali Mubarak, happy Diwali.
The honourable member for Quebec-Matapat.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize an iconic partner in food production and agriculture for my riding. McCain Foods, who this year is celebrating 60 years of passion, potatoes, and partnerships with Canadian farm families, serving up goodness from their family to yours. In 1957, the McCain brothers founded the company in their hometown of Lawrenceville, New Brunswick. Today, while McCain is still family-owned and headquartered in New Brunswick, it has grown to over 41 production facilities across 6 continents, employing more than 17,000 people around the world. In fact, 1 in every 3 French fries around the world is a McCain French fry. From farm to fork, this innovative Canadian business has generations of potato growing under their belt and knows what it takes to put good food on your table. McCain is proud to partner with Canadian farm families in 3 provinces who collectively produce more than 80,000 acres of high-quality potatoes. McCain Foods will also tell you that their people are the secret ingredient to their delicious products and the core reason for their worldwide success. 60 years ago, brothers Harrison and Wallace McCain co-founded McCain Foods on the belief that good ethics is good business, and this still holds true today. Congratulations to McCain Foods, and all the best in the future.
Hear, hear. Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday, high winds fueled a wildfire that tore through Cypress County north of Hilda. The quick response from local farmers, residents, and volunteer firefighters helped put out the fire, but not before it destroyed several family farm homes, along with a significant amount of property, including livestock. In most communities across Canada, the commitment of these volunteers saves lives and livelihoods. Tragically, the fire claimed the life of volunteer firefighter James Hargrave, a dedicated young husband, father, rancher, and community leader known for his involvement with land stewardship, environmental issues, and advocating for Canada's farming and ranching industry. James's passion was operating the 5-generation JH Ranch north of Walsh, and he is the grandson of Bert Hargrave, who proudly stood in this House as the Member of Parliament for Medicine Hat years before me. James leaves behind his wife, Elizabeth, their 4 children, Hudson, age 6, Alex, 4, Savannah, 2, Isabel, 6 months. Our hearts go out to all of those who were impacted by this fire, and especially to James's family and his many friends. Our community, our province, indeed our country is less because of the loss of James Hargrave. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Don Valley West is the new home to close to 1,000 Syrian refugees. On Sunday night, I hosted 250 of them at a Thanksgiving concert. We were enthralled by the world-class musicians from Looking at the Stars Foundation, which brings classical music to people who may not have a chance to hear great music, music that transforms them and transports them to places of beauty, compassion, and grace. Dmitry Kanovich, a refugee once himself, founded Looking at the Stars. He brought together musicians Lucas Genesis, Yolanda Bruno, Joe Johnson, and Barry Schiffman for a magical evening. It was supported by the Consulate of the United Arab Emirates and volunteers from Lawrence Park Community Church and Leaside United Church who responded to my call for help. Settling refugees well takes a government that welcomes those in need of protection. It takes community agencies like Thorncliffe Neighbourhood Office and New Circles who give direct service, and it takes settled Canadians who open their hands and their hearts to help them flourish in this country. Together, we make Canada stronger and better.
Honourable Member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honour to rise today and wish a happy Diwali and Bandi Chor Divas to all those celebrating in Winnipeg South and across the country. Diwali, known as the Festival of Lights, is one of the most important holidays in Hinduism. It celebrates the triumph of good over evil and knowledge over ignorance. Bandi Chor Divas is celebrated by Sikhs all over the world. On this day, we reflect on the values of courage, compassion, and freedom for all. Last Saturday night, I had the pleasure of joining a Diwali event hosted by the Hindu Association of Manitoba. It was a fantastic evening featuring great cuisine and cultural performances. Over 5,000 Manitobans attended to celebrate Indian culture. I helped light the diyas and shared a meal featuring mithai. It's great that in this country we can experience all the flavors and textures of so many cultures right in our own backyard. Again, I would like to wish a happy Diwali and Bandi Chor Divas to all those celebrating. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the iconic Block Parent Program of Canada will be celebrating its 50th birthday in 2018.
In communities of every region of Canada, this initiative is often the only volunteer safety program available for people who want to keep their community safe. The program has been supported by Department of Public Safety Canada over the past 26 years with a tiny contribution of $22,000 annually.
But all of a sudden, on the eve of the program's 50th birthday, the Minister of Public Safety has decided that these volunteers' efforts are not worth it. Without a second thought, the Minister has decided to end that partnership of community volunteers, police services, and the Government of Canada by cutting that tiny contribution. Mr. Speaker, we know that the Liberals have a penchant for out-of-control spending, but ending such an important program is a blatant lapse in judgment. We always knew that the Liberals didn't take the safety of Canadians seriously. Well, here's yet even more proof of that.
Member for Scarborough Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my 2 years as Member of Parliament for Scarborough Centre, I've been privileged to visit many different places of worship. No matter where we come from or how we worship, I have continually been impressed by the values and priorities that we all hold in common. Our love for our families, our community, and our great country, and our desire to give a better life to our children. I believe there is so much more we can accomplish for the community together when we harness our collective energy and passion. That's why we have launched the Scarborough Centre Multi-Faith Council. I hope this group can work to understand and bridge our differences to promote respect and harmony. As our first event, the Scarborough Muslim Association recently hosted a Thanksgiving dinner at the local mosque where people from all faiths came together in fellowship to break bread and learn from one another. It was a great evening, and I look forward to seeing what this group can accomplish. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, on October 18th of each year, Canadians celebrate Persons Day. This day marks the pivotal moment in 1929 when the famous five Canadian trailblazers fought for women to be legally recognized as persons under our Constitution. Each year, the Governor-General recognizes Canadians for their outstanding contributions to equality for women and girls. Today, 6 phenomenal Canadian women received the Governor-General's awards in commemoration of the Persons case for 2017. Betsy Burry, Saskatoon; Micheline Dumont, Sherbrooke; Dr. Ramona Lumpkin, Halifax; Elizabeth Sheehy, Ottawa; Linda Slanina, Kitimat; Melissa Sarifuddin, this year's youth recipient, Toronto. To this year's recipients, you have made your mark, and we salute you for helping to build a more equal and an inclusive country.
And they'll be standing again a little later. The honourable member for Calgary Confederation.
Mr. Speaker, it is with great sadness that I rise to mark the passing of a friend and Calgary legend, Joe Carberry. Joe was the familiar voice at the Calgary Stampede for 45 years. His play-by-play brought an unimaginable level of excitement to the Stampede Chuckwagon Rangeland Derby. His deep, gravelly voice, so recognizable that his calling of the Chucks is etched in the memories of anyone who attended the greatest outdoor show on earth. He was a large part of our community and a huge promoter of local sports. He was a class act and refreshingly humble, always ready to help and serve his community in any way that he could. He left his mark on chuckwagon racing. He was loved by the fans. He worked to make the sport safer and accessible to all. Joe will now join his beloved Rose once again. Our deepest sympathies to his daughters Colleen and Kathleen and the entire Carberry family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What a legend.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is a very important day. Not only are we celebrating Small Business Week, but today is also Startup Canada Day on Parliament Hill. Throughout the day, more than 1,100 entrepreneurs, investors, industry representatives, and leaders will be planning Canada's innovation ecosystem in the future. These small business owners create and support well-paid jobs for the middle class. I am proud of the fact that our government will be bringing the tax on small businesses down to 9% in 2019 while ensuring that the tax system is fair for all Canadians. I invite all members to join with me in welcoming on the Hill Victoria Lennox and the Startup Canada team to congratulate them for their excellent work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was a very, very important fight that was fought many years ago, the women who fought to be recognized as persons. And this morning I had the honor of attending the Governor General Awards for those in commemoration of the Persons case. This year, a citizen of Sherbrooke earned this distinction. Ms. Micheline Dumont, Professor Emeritus in the Faculty of History of the University of Sherbrooke, has authored and co-authored 18 books and leaflets. I would like to personally congratulate Ms. Dumont and thank her for having devoted her life to highlighting an all too often overlooked important part of conventional history. We still need engaged and determined women to achieve a truly egalitarian society. And I would like to say that the words of Ms. Dumont were so important in summing up her career. Women are a part of history, they have a history, and they make history.
Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is reverting back to the time-honoured Liberal tradition of buying used equipment for the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces. Over Thanksgiving, this government quietly announced that it has begun negotiations with Australia to buy their old fighter jets. This is after the Defence Minister clearly stated that the Liberal government would not be buying used jets for our Air Force. Canadians still remember the embarrassing Liberal purchase of buying used submarines. Instead of learning from their mistakes, the Liberals have doubled down and in doing so sent a direct message to our troops that this government is willing to buy old and tell our armed forces to just make do. The fact is that the Liberal government have turned the replacement of our CF-18s into a circus. Mr. Speaker, the members of the Canadian Armed Forces are tired of the delays. They are tired of the empty rhetoric, and they are tired of this Defence Minister who can't keep his facts straight. And it's finally time for this Defence Minister to do what's in the best interest of our Air Force and immediately launch an open and fair competition to replace our entire fleet of CF-18s.
The Honourable Member for Honoré-Mercier. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago, Canadians made a choice. They chose a government that wanted to invest in the middle class and all those working hard to join it. Over the past 2 years, that is exactly what we have done. We increased taxes on the wealthiest 1% and reduced them for the middle class. We brought in the Canada Child Benefit, which is more generous for all those 9 families out of 10, and which is not taxable. We made significant investments in home care as well as mental health services, and our plan is working. More than 400,000 jobs have been created, the majority of them full-time. They're jealous, Mr. Speaker. For 2 years now, we have been focusing on the middle class, and I'll tell you something, that's what we're going to continue to do. We're not going to stop now. We're going to do it for our young people, for our children, for our families. We're going to do it for all Canadians.
Order.
Order. Order. Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Carleton.
The finance minister hid his offshore company in France until he got caught, and then he reported it. He hid from Canadians his millions of dollars in Morneau Chappelle shares in a numbered company in Alberta, despite wrongly telling others it was in a blind trust, until he got caught, and now he's selling them. Why does he expect us to blindly trust that he is not hiding other conflicts of interest in his 8 additional numbered companies that he has across the country?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we have a process in this country to ensure that ministers don't have conflicts of interest. I worked with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that I disclosed all my assets. I worked with her to ensure that I took an approach that freed me from conflicts. But I called her this morning and I informed her that I was going to take 2 additional steps beyond her recommendations. First, I was going to put my assets in a blind trust. And second, I was going to work with her to ensure that neither myself nor my family have any shareholdings in Morneau Chappelle, the company that I used to be with. Finally, I'm going to continue with the conflict of interest screen to make sure that I have no conflict of interest and that Canadians have confidence.
Order. Order. The honourable member for Carleton.
For the last several months, this finance minister has said that our farmers, plumbers, and other small business owners are a privileged few using fancy accounting schemes to avoid paying their fair share. Right. We now learn that this finance minister used a loophole, putting millions of dollars of shares he was otherwise banned from owning into a numbered company in Alberta in order to continue to earn millions of dollars. Now that this hypocrisy is exposed, doesn't he think it's time to apologize to those business owners he slandered?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, two separate issues there. So let's start with what we've actually been working with on behalf of Canadians. We're working towards...
Order. I'm going to ask the members, I'm asking the honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton, and others to try to restrain themselves and to wait until it's their turn, if it comes today, to speak, and not speak when they haven't got the floor, as they know the rules don't permit interruptions. The Honourable Minister of Finance has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, 2 issues from that question. First, we've been working with Canadians to make sure that we have a tax system that doesn't create advantages only for the very wealthy. We've also ensured that we have tax rates that are low so small businesses can invest across the country. And with respect to my own finances, what I am going to continue to do is to work with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that I not only meet all of her recommendations, but even go further to ensure that Canadians have confidence in the long-term future of this country and confidence in the role of the Minister of Finance.
Member for Carleton.
The minister has vast powers at his hands that he would be able to use to advantage the company in which he had tens of millions of dollars of secret holdings. He committed to the Ethics Commissioner in writing that he would recuse himself from any matters that might advantage Morneau Chappelle. Can the minister tell us how many times he recused himself from matters relating to Morneau Chappelle since he took office?
Great question. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by setting the record straight. I disclosed all of my assets to the Ethics Commissioner to meet up to the high standards of integrity that this government wants to continue to uphold. I will continue to do so. What I can say is that we will, on an ongoing basis, continue to work on behalf of Canadians. We know that what's important is that we meet up to their standards. I will ensure that to the extent that there's any approach that the Ethics Commissioner advises me to take, I take. And as I said, I'm going that one step further than any person has before me to divest of my assets in Morneau Chappelle.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, we learned this morning in the Globe and Mail that the Minister of Finance had told his colleagues, his former colleagues 2 years ago, that he would put all of his assets in a blind trust. He even confirmed this with journalists. But then he woke up and he decided 2 years later that all members in this House know that it takes 60 days maximum to declare one's assets. But now the light is on. We want to know when the Minister of Finance told the Prime Minister about his conflict of interest. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, in our system, we work with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that everything in our situation is clear. That's what I did. I did this from the very beginning, and I got the Ethics Commissioner's opinion and followed her recommendations. But today, I spoke with the Ethics Commissioner and told her that I wanted to do even more. A blind trust, and I also wanted to work with her to look at all of my, to sell all of my Morna Chappelle assets. That's very important, to have the trust of Canadians. The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. It took 2 years to understand something so obvious. The mandate letter that the Prime Minister gave to his Minister of Finance says, "You must uphold the highest standards of honesty and impartiality, and the arrangement of your private affairs should bear the closest public scrutiny." And we're talking about the Finance Minister here, no less. The man that the Prime Minister was still defending yesterday. When did the Finance Minister tell the Prime Minister that he was in a state of conflict of interest? Honourable Minister of Finance.
I didn't talk to the Prime Minister about this. I spoke to the Ethics Commissioner. That's actually the way our system works. I worked with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that I didn't have conflicts of interest. And in fact, I followed to the letter the approach that she suggested. What I'm saying today is that I don't think the distractions, the slander, the things that are being said across the hall are in any way helpful to our economy or to Canadians. So I'm going to move forward and take an additional step, a step that will ensure the confidence of Canadians and ensure that I can get back to the work that I want to do.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Lebasque. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance, for 2 years, told his own company that he would be placing his assets in a blind trust. He said that for 2 years. He told the media that he would be placing his assets in a blind trust. For 2 years, he said that he would place his assets in a blind trust. Why did he mislead the media and his colleagues and his company and all Canadians for 2 years? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, to be absolutely clear, the way that we work here with the Ethics Commissioner is to work with her and to explain our situation. We get her opinion and we follow her recommendations. That's what I did. With her recommendations, I was certain that I wasn't in a state of conflict of interest. Now I've decided to do even more. And in this way, we will be able to have even more trust in the Finance Minister. The Honourable Member. If he has so much confidence in what he did, then why did he say the opposite to his colleagues? In the 5 days following the tabling of Bill C-27, which will directly benefit Morna Chappelle, and it's a bill that's sponsored by the Minister himself, the value of Morna Chappelle's shares went up by 4.8%. So the Minister has made profits of more than $2 million. As an intelligent person, does he not see that this is a conflict of interest and that he can benefit from it through his own shares? The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Clear what I did. I ensured that I worked with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that she understood my situation. I took her recommendations and made sure that I moved forward with them to not have a conflict of interest. Now I've gone one step further. And in order to make sure that there is no possibility of any conflict whatsoever, I actually informed the Ethics Commissioner this morning that I would like to work with her to divest of any shares for me or my family in my former Morna Chappelle employer. That, I think, will give a great deal of confidence to all Canadians.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the few days after he personally introduced Bill C-27, a bill designed to attack the pensions of Canadians and help firms like Morneau Shepell, the value of Morneau Shepell's stocks increased by 4.8%. For the finance minister's personal holdings, that represented a profit of over $2 million in just 5 days. That's more money than the average Canadian makes in a lifetime of work. The minister constantly talks about serving the public, but how does pocketing millions of dollars from his work as the minister do anything but serve himself?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, as I said this morning to the Ethics Commissioner, I've taken all of her recommendations because I respect the office of the Ethics Commissioner, and I believe that what she's doing is trying to ensure that we don't have conflicts of interest. I also said that I'm going to move forward with additional steps to work with her and her office in whatever way I can in order to move away from having any of those shareholdings. And that will happen over the course of time. I won't have any understanding of what the actual proceeds will or won't be, and that's the process as it should be.
Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
For 2 years, the finance minister told the media that he was putting his shares in a blind trust. He told the same thing to his old company. Canadians and even fellow Liberal MPs lived this lie. And his response, 2 years later, I guess, after making millions, now it's time to do the right thing. Talk about Liberal entitlement. These guys really know how to celebrate an anniversary. Too many Canadians already think that too many politicians are just in it for themselves, and now this. Does this finance minister simply not understand that his actions ruin the trust in our institutions? And if he really wants to do the right thing, will he apologize for abusing the trust they put in him?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I have a different sense of why Canadians have a distrust in politicians. When people say things that they're aware are certainly not the case, that is why Canadians don't have confidence in politicians. What the member opposite knows is that I fully disclosed my assets to the Ethics Commissioner. I worked with the Ethics Commissioner to get her recommendations, and I followed those recommendations. If the member opposite is actually suggesting that the Ethics Commissioner is not doing a good job, he should come out and say that directly.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, this government was elected on a promise of transparency, and today it's clearly the opposite. The Finance Minister and his company, Morneau Shepell, have benefited from the minister's actions. His company has made money, and the minister still holds shares in that company. He tabled Bill C-27, which will directly increase Morneau Shepell's profits. So my question is simple, Mr. Speaker. When did the Minister of Finance tell the Prime Minister that he was in a state of conflict of interest, and when did he recuse himself from all discussions on this bill? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the way to ensure that you don't have a conflict of interest in Canada is to work with the Ethics Commissioner, and that's what I did. I explained the situation, she gave me her advice, and I followed her recommendations. That is how you can be certain that you don't have a conflict of interest. Now I'm going to do more with a blind trust, and I will work with the Commissioner to divest myself of my assets and my family's assets in Morneau Shepell. That way, people can trust in my position. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate that this discussion with the Ethics Commissioner wasn't done in the goal of having more transparency, but in the goal of finding a way to get around the law. And that's what he did. That's what he's wanted to do since 2013. In 2013, he gave a speech. He was the director of Morneau Shepell at the time, and he talked about the necessity of having a bill that would allow target benefit plans in Canada. In 2016, he delivered the goods. He tabled this bill, which directly benefited the minister and his corporation. When did the minister recuse himself from this discussion? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I will continue to work for Canadian families and for the middle class in Canada because I know it's very important. We have done a number of very important things in this country. We've reduced taxes for the middle class. We've introduced the Canada Child Benefit. We've improved our pension system for Canadians, and we will continue with policies and measures that will help Canadian families. That is something that's very important for me. I want to continue with that important work and not with these things that are really not necessary and don't need to be talked about.
Opposition House Leader. Order.
Mr. Speaker, in 2013, the Executive Chair of Morneau Shepell said, and I quote, "We need legislation enabling target benefit plans in all Canadian jurisdictions," unquote. So he made it happen. He became the Minister of Finance and he tabled the legislation himself. To make this conflict much worse, Morneau Shepell continued to pay that minister tens of thousands of dollars a month. The question the minister has not answered is why did he not recuse himself around discussions about Bill C-27?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the process for working with the Ethics Commissioner, which all 338 members in this House are familiar with, is actually presenting your assets, working with the Ethics Commissioner to understand her advice, and taking that advice, respecting the officers of Parliament. And what I did was I took the advice, I respected the officer of Parliament, and I moved forward with the conflicts of interest screen, which I know has been put in place for the last year and a half. So that is the way that we do it in this country, and I've decided to take one step further because I think that that's worth doing in my position as Minister of Finance. So I'm looking forward to continuing to do that.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Morneau Shepell thought that the Minister of Finance had placed his shares in a blind trust. We all thought he had placed his shares in a blind trust. He had not done that, and in fact, he was enacting legislation that would directly benefit him and Morneau Shepell. I have a different question. Maybe the minister will answer this. At any time did the minister discuss Bill C-27 with Morneau Shepell while he was finance minister? At any time did they discuss this bill?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
No.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Time and time again, the minister has claimed that he's been in full compliance with the ethics law, but now we find out that by his own admission today that he's not been. Well, here's another one, Mr. Speaker. Last week we learned that the minister has been hiding his ownership of an offshore corporation for over 2 years, something he is obliged by law to disclose. How can any Canadian believe anything that this minister says when he keeps saying that he's been following the law, and we now know that that isn't true?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I know the members opposite are familiar with the approach to declaring assets to the Ethics Commissioner, to getting the advice of the Ethics Commissioner, and to moving forward, and that's exactly the approach that I've taken. So
Order. I would ask the member for Calgary Midnapore and others, I know she's new here, but I think she knows the rules by now, that one is not to interrupt, and we're to wait. I would encourage members to wait and to wait and save their comments until they have the floor. The Honourable Minister of Finance has the floor. Order.
So my situation has been fully disclosed, and what I've now said this morning is that I'm actually going to go a step further, and that step further is, in my estimation, something that is necessary because of the distraction that this places at our feet at this moment. So putting in place a blind trust, making sure that I no longer, or my family no longer has shares in Morneau Shepell, I think will help with the confidence allowing us to do our job.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Minister keeps saying that we have a process. Well, yes, Minister, we do. It's called honesty and integrity. For 2 years, the minister was breaking the law by specifically hiding the ownership of his offshore corporation from the Ethics Commissioner. That's not called compliance. That's not called working with the Ethics Commissioner. It's called hiding from the Ethics Commissioner. When will the minister finally admit that he broke the law?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, to address the question directly, I disclosed all of my assets to the Ethics Commissioner at the time of discussing that with him. We did, in fact, find out later that there was one administrative error which was not substantive. So we've corrected that problem. What I will do on an ongoing basis is work with the annual process to make sure that we disclose everything to the Ethics Commissioner, which will help Canadians to have confidence. And what I know now is that I will ensure that I live by those very high standards, because that will allow me to get on with the work that we want to do to improve the lives of Canadians.
The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the current bankruptcy process is failing to protect Canadian workers and their families. This is true for the workers and retirees of Sears Canada. And instead of doing something to protect workers, the Liberals continue to support wealthy corporations. Shame. What's worse, we learned yesterday that Morneau Chappelle will be handling the administration of Sears Canada's pension plan, which means the finance minister will personally benefit from this liquidation. Is the finance minister comfortable with the fact that alongside Sears executives getting massive bonuses, he's making money while workers lose their benefits?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, we know that this is a difficult time for the workers, their families, and for many communities. That's why our government is making every effort to connect with Sears employees and pensioners with programs that can assist them through this difficult time. We also understand that current Sears Canada pension funds are held in trust and must be used solely for the benefit of the pensioners. So we'll continue to engage and work with the employees, their families, to make sure we help them during this difficult time, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, it's clear. Our bankruptcy laws simply do not protect our workers, and this government is doing nothing to fix the situation. Workers at Sears Canada were laid off without severance pay. Retirees are at a risk of having their pensions cut, but the executives are still getting their bonuses. And who's benefiting from this agreement? The Minister of Finance. How can the Liberals accept that their minister is getting rich at the expense of these unfortunate Sears employees and retirees? Honourable Minister of Economic Development. Mr. Speaker, I understand that this is a very difficult period for the employees and their families.
Mr. Speaker, we are engaging with them, and all our colleagues are involved to help them out where we can. In particular, Service Canada has been meeting with representatives from Sears Canada across the country. There's been 80 sessions that have taken place, Mr. Speaker, and we'll continue to work with them in order to assist them in this difficult time, because it's making sure that they have an opportunity to find meaningful employment going forward and to assist them with this difficult time during this transition period, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance may try to camouflage the truth, but when we can see right in front of us all the aspects of a conflict of interest, you have to recognize it as a conflict of interest. The Minister of Finance is responsible for the tax treaty between Canada and Barbados. Barbados is known as a tax haven. Morneau Chappelle has a subsidiary. Guess where? In Barbados. Mr. Speaker, did the Minister of Finance recuse himself from discussions about this tax treaty?
The Ministre des Finances.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
While the opposition is focused on me and my personal finance, I'll tell you what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on continuing to work for Canadians. The work we've done over the last couple of years is not finished, but it's a really, really great start. We've got a situation where our economy is growing at a pace that wasn't seen during the years of the previous government. We've seen more growth in employment over the last year than we've seen in a decade. So Canadians are feeling better. Middle-class Canadians have the possibility of getting a job. We know there's more work to be done, and we're going to focus on it.
The Honourable Member for Beauport de Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. It's sad to see that someone like the Minister of Finance thinks that he's above the law. The Minister of Finance is responsible for a tax treaty between Canada and Barbados. We've just learned that he finally woke up, thanks to our pressure, and he finally realized that there was too much pressure and that he was in a situation of conflict of interest. Before placing his assets in a blind trust, did he make the effort to recuse himself from all cabinet discussions having to do with this tax treaty with Barbados? The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, it's very important to have a conflict of ethics system in our country, and I followed the recommendations of the Ethics Commissioner, which is a very important thing. It's very important to respect Parliament and all of the rules. I will continue to do this. And to me, being certain that I'm not in a situation of conflict of interest is important, so I've decided to do more. I've decided to divest my assets and my family's assets. I'm going to use a blind trust to be sure that there will be absolutely no conflict of interest.
The honourable member for Lakeland. Order.
Mr. Speaker, the question was about the Finance Minister being responsible for the Canada-Barbados tax treaty. Now Canadians know the Finance Minister owns millions of dollars of shares in his billion-dollar family business, Morneau Shepell. Barbados is a well-known tax haven. The Finance Minister's company has a subsidiary in that country, which means he currently benefits from the tax treaty with Barbados. So the question is clear. Did the Finance Minister recuse himself from all discussions about the tax treaty?
Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is strongly committed to fighting tax evasion, and our actions demonstrate that. Over the last 2 years, our government has invested nearly $1 billion.
Alors.
Order.
I want to remind members that by making so much noise, might take a question away from one of their colleagues. And I wouldn't want that. The Honourable Minister,
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I was saying that in our last 2 budgets, our government has invested nearly $1 billion, which has allowed us to take concrete steps, Mr. Speaker. We've targeted 4 jurisdictions per year. We are on the right track to be able to recover nearly $25 billion. We had 727 cases transferred to criminal investigations.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that makes it clear the minister hid his money and now he's still hiding from Canadians.
Yeah.
And the Prime Minister directed the Finance Minister to, quote, uphold the highest standards of honesty and impartiality, an obligation that is not fully discharged, the PM said, by simply acting within the law. The Finance Minister directly benefits from the tax treaty with Barbados. He oversees negotiations that set the tax rules between these 2 countries. That's not impartial. He didn't tell anyone. That's not honest. So I ask again, did the Finance Minister recuse himself from all discussions about the Canada-Barbados tax treaty?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to address the core of that question. The Prime Minister sets the highest standards for integrity of our government. He expects us to follow through on the commitments that we have to make to ensure we don't have conflicts of interest. When we look at conflicts of interest, the way we work towards ensuring we don't have them in our system is working with the Ethics Commissioner. So that's why I did that. That's why I followed her recommendations. I know that in order to do even more, I'm going to take additional steps. What I can make absolutely clear to Canadians is our government remains committed to the highest standards of integrity. We're going to go above and beyond the recommendations to make.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
As the Me Too campaign continues to show the magnitude of sexual assault in our country, Canadian universities just got a grade of C- for their campus rape policies. Sadly, this isn't new. That's why 6 months ago, New Democrats called on the Liberal government to lead a national coordination of policies to prevent campus sexual assault. Women need more than feminist rhetoric. They need action. So when will this self-proclaimed feminist Prime Minister truly stand up for women and lead this campaign?
Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, gender-based violence is preventable, and yet it remains as a significant barrier to gender equality. Our government is committed to ensuring that our daughters and mothers and sisters live free from all forms of violence, which is why we put aside $100.9 million in the first federal strategy to address and prevent gender-based violence, to work on prevention, support for survivors and their families, and to ensure a more responsive legal and justice systems. The work continues, but we're committed to that work.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker,
The Me Too campaign continues to reveal the full scope of sexual harassment and assault. A pan-Canadian student group gave universities all over the country a C- for their on-campus sexual assault policies. Guidelines on the content of those policies don't exist. The government must coordinate these policies at a national level to prevent sexual assault at our universities. Will the Minister for Youth, a self-proclaimed feminist, lead the effort to coordinate sexual assault prevention policies on our campuses? The Honourable Minister of Status of Women.
On campuses, in our workplaces, in homes and communities across the country, we are working to coordinate our efforts with provinces and territories. We work with them to develop the first federal strategy to address and prevent gender-based violence. We are investing in work that campuses across the country are doing. We've invested close to $50 million in organizations across the country to do this important work. The women's movement has been not invested in for the last 10 years by the previous government. We're committed to changing that.
Honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for 2 years, our government has been working to help grow the economy and strengthen the middle class. The economy is now stronger and growing in ways not seen in over a decade. Canadian businesses and investors can have confidence in our dropping unemployment, our rising GDP, and the strengthening of our investment culture and the environment.
Can the Minister of Finance update this House on our government's plan to ensure that the middle class and those working hard to join it will benefit from this growth? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Kitchener-Waterloo for his question and acknowledge that he, like so many of my colleagues, have been of enormous assistance over the last month as we've considered how to make sure that we make sure our tax system is fair while encouraging competitiveness across our country. The next step in that discussion really is about our fall economic statement. And I'm delighted to tell the House that next Tuesday, the 24th of October, we will be bringing forth our fall economic statement to give Canadians an update on the progress we've made and the progress we want to continue to make. Je suis très heureux d'expliquer aux Canadiens.
I'm very happy to explain to the Canadians and to this House that next Tuesday, October 21st,
the Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, today the Finance Minister admitted that his ethical standards are in tatters. Ministers are not supposed to directly own shares in companies, especially those they regulate. So to get around that, the minister hid his mega-million-dollar fortune in an Alberta numbered company, dodging ethical guidelines and paying less tax than other law-abiding Canadians. Only a wealthy and entitled finance minister could pull off such a stunt. With his integrity in shambles, will the minister now admit that he's still in a conflict of interest?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, there are numerous inaccuracies in that question. Let's start with the very first fact that I disclosed all of my assets to the Ethics Commission. That was very important. Let's move forward to say that I actually took the recommendation.
Order. Perhaps members didn't hear what I said earlier about losing a question, because that could happen very soon. Honourable Minister of Finance has the floor.
The second step, of course, was taking the recommendations from the Ethics Commissioner so that I could make sure that I was free of conflicts of interest. This is about respecting the officers of Parliament. Now, it's not a surprise to me that the members opposite who didn't respect Statistics Canada, who didn't respect science, also don't necessarily respect an officer of Parliament. I'm going to continue to do so and live up to the highest standards that Canadians expect of me.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the minister conveniently forgot the company with the French villa that he forgot to disclose. Last week, I was in Maple Ridge and heard the outrage residents have towards their missing in action MP over his government's hypocrisy on taxes. Small businesses are angry that the finance minister, who is asking them to pay more taxes, receives tens of thousands of dollars per month from a company that he owns and regulates, and that is registered in an offshore tax haven. Why did it take him 2 years to admit that he failed to uphold the ethical standards expected of a finance minister?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the statement was entirely factually incorrect. But let me move forward and say what we've done for Canadians this week. For small businesses across the country, we are moving forward to lower their tax rate. By January 1st, 2019, they will have a 9% tax rate, which is lower than the 10.5% presently. What we're also doing is making sure their system is fair. Businesses will be able to continue to save within their company so that they can actually invest in their business or have a retirement, but we will do that in a way that doesn't advantage the very few that are already successful. So these are important measures that we're going to move forward to help.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
For 2 years, the finance minister used fancy lawyers and fancy accounting schemes to secretly exploit an ethics loophole and maintain control of millions of dollars of Morneau Chappelle shares that as finance minister he was banned from owning directly. Changing that scheme 2 years too late and only after his hand was caught in the cookie jar doesn't change the fact that this was corrupt and a conflict of interest. Right. Why did the finance minister work so much harder to hide his conflict of interest than to actually avoid it in the first place?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, based on this question, I can only assume that the member opposite is questioning the advice of the Ethics Commissioner. What I did by exposing all of my assets to the Ethics Commissioner is I allowed her to give me advice on how best to move forward to ensure that I didn't have a conflict of interest. And I took those recommendations, respecting the office and making sure that I assured Canadians that I didn't have a conflict of interest. By taking the additional step, moving forward to do things not required of me, I want to make sure that we can continue to do the work that we want to do for Canadians, to make sure that Canadian families are having success and that we're doing better and better over the years to come.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, we're questioning this minister's clear conflict of interest. Exactly. Morneau Chappelle is a company that administers pensions. It's a company that would benefit from friendly legislation from this finance minister, and that's exactly what happened. The minister introduced a bill to allow target benefit pension plans, the very plans his own company administers. The finance minister personally profited from the decisions that he made as the Minister of Finance. Why did it take 2 years for the minister to realize that he shouldn't be both the Minister of Finance and the Minister for Morneau Chappelle?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, we are going to move on from this discussion around our personal finances. We're going to ensure that we do the work that Canadians want us to do. We know that dealing with conflicts of interest, that's important. We've done that. I've taken an additional step. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work to ensure that the growth that we've seen in our economy continues, that the jobs that we've grown in our economy help families, and that we can continue to add more new jobs. That's the work that we're committed to doing for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Okay, Zanjanong First Nation, adjacent to the Cerny Industrial Complex, has suffered high incidences of cancer, rashes, and respiratory diseases. Yet minimal enforcement action by Conservative or Liberal governments on repeated spills and pollution incidences. This First Nations calls for a health impact study, mirror others being ignored. The Environment Minister has a duty to regulate toxins. The Health Minister has a mandatory duty to take action where toxins impact health. What is their excuse for failing to protect this suffering community?
Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The situation in Sarnia with the First Nations is very worrying. We are encouraged by the steps that the Ontario government is taking, and we are working very closely with them. This is exactly why we need to ensure we always have strong regulations for clean air and to protect human health. We are looking forward to strengthening the Canadian Environmental Protection Act.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. This week, the Québécois organization Vigilance OGM said that apparently 5 million GMO salmon were sold in Quebec. Yet Provigo, IGA, and Metro have said they wouldn't sell any because the Canadian public does not want to eat any. Does that mean that Quebecers unintentionally ate GMO salmon? Did this genetically engineered salmon wind up in institutions like hospitals or prisons? Canadians want transparency. Why did the Liberal government not listen to Canadians and demand mandatory labeling of GMO products?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has one of the safest, most affordable, and most abundant food supplies in the world, and that is due in no small part to our science-based regulatory system. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to studying the evidence and making decisions using the best available data. Health Canada scientists conduct a rigorous pre-market safety assessment of all genetically modified foods prior to allowing their sale on the Canadian market.
Honourable Member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the facts are clear. The Finance Minister's letter was specific. In 2015, he told all the owners of his company, Morneau Chappelle, and Canadians that he would put his assets into a blind trust. He clearly knew what the right thing to do was. But instead, he chose to use a loophole and continue to deliberately hide and control millions of dollars. Another important question is, what Canadians need to know, when did the Prime Minister, was he complicit or deceived? When did he know?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, to be absolutely clear, disclosing all my assets was very important, and that's exactly what I did with the Ethics Commissioner. That's the way the system works. I did that because the Prime Minister asked myself and all of the members of our government to live up to the highest standards of integrity. Working with the Ethics Commissioner and taking her recommendations is really respecting the role of that officer of Parliament. We will continue to respect the role of Parliament and take her recommendations as opposed to the ill-informed recommendations across the hall.
The Honourable Member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just going to remind the Finance Minister I will not be shamed by his personal lack of respect for this Parliament, so thank you. Yeah. I'm just going to remind him that his job was to uphold the highest standards of honesty and impartiality, that he should arrange his personal private affairs with the conflict of interest rules, and it was just not beyond the letter. It was the letter of the law that may be there, but his job was to go over and above. So I'm asking now, can the Finance Minister confirm, was he hiding this from the Prime Minister as well? Thank you.
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I think I've been very clear to say that the Prime Minister expects us to live up to the highest standards of integrity, and that's what we've done here. He expects us to work with the Ethics Commissioner. He expects us to take the recommendations of the Ethics Commissioner and put them into place. In my situation, the Ethics Commissioner gave me some very specific ideas on how I could best ensure that I didn't have conflict of interest. I followed those recommendations. Now I'm going to take some additional steps to go even further. That, Mr. Speaker, I think will assure all Canadians of confidence in this role.
The Honourable Member for Provencher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. These are the facts. The Prime Minister clearly instructed the Finance Minister to arrange his private affairs in a way that would bear the closest public scrutiny. The Finance Minister told Morneau Chappelle and the press that he would place his holdings in a blind trust to avoid conflicts of interest. But 2 years later, we now know that he did no such thing. What? I'll give the Minister another opportunity to answer the question. When did he tell the Prime Minister that he chose not to put his assets in a blind trust, despite committing to do that?
Good question. Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to actually go to the real facts as opposed to the alternative facts and give a little explanation to the member opposite. So the real facts are that I gave all of my assets to the Ethics Commissioner so that she could determine the best way to avoid conflicts of interest. She told me that the best measure of compliance was to put in place a conflict of interest screen, which is exactly what I did. So complying with the Ethics Commissioner, respecting an officer of Parliament, that's the way we'll continue to comport ourselves. And in fact, I'm going to go some steps further than that.
The Honourable Member for Markham Thornhill.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's tourism industry is having another fantastic year in 2017.
Of Markham Thornhill, we welcomed record numbers of visitors from around the world who came to visit family to celebrate Canada's 150 in one of Canada's most diverse regions. Can the Minister of Small Business and Tourism update this House with the latest news on Canada's thriving tourism sector?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. C'est une journée formidable pour l'industrie.
It's a great day for the tourism industry.
January to August 2017, we welcomed over 14.6 million international tourists, up 4.3% from 2016. And this is especially great news during Small Business Week, as most of Canada's tourism businesses are small businesses. More visitors means more growth in the sector, which means more jobs for Canadians. 10.5% of this year's visitors are from China. Amazing news as we prepare for the 2018 Canada-China Year of Tourism. As I'm on my feet, I'd like to wish everyone celebrating Happy Diwali. Thank you, Mr.
The honourable member from Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that negotiating a new softwood lumber agreement has never been a priority for this government. For example, in Lac-Saint-Jean, more than 5,000 jobs depend on this vital sector. Jobs that are made very vulnerable by the new American administration's tariffs. Liberal inaction could have disastrous consequences for thousands of families that depend on the forest. Will today's government do the only logical thing and defend this vital industry against harmful attacks by foreign-funded groups and support the opposition motion to defend our forestry workers? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. I want to assure my colleague that a priority for our government and for me personally is the softwood lumber issue. It is a very important issue for us and for Canadians. I will repeat and emphasize that countervailing duties imposed by the U.S. Department of Trade are unfair and punitive. We are working closely with Quebec and the industry and workers. But I also want to highlight that we want a good agreement, not just any agreement. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, it's not just the Finance Minister that's out of touch, there's also the Minister of Heritage. Tuesday, in response to a report from the Heritage Committee, which asked for real measures to be taken to help media and cultural industry, the Minister said that options are being explored after 2 consultations, 3 reports, and 3,000 people consulted for 18 months. Seems to me that the situation should be clear enough. It is critical, and the Minister needs to act and act now. But her answer was to send the ball into the CRT's court for it to explore options in a year. When will the minister do her job and respond to the urgency of this situation? When will she wake up and protect the people she's supposed to protect, because she is the Minister of Heritage? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for his question and for his work on committee. During our consultations, and after the excellent work done by the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage, we heard Canadians insist on the importance of the news and local information. Our approach will be guided by the principles of healthy democracy, which depends on a healthy journalistic sector, and government policy needs to respect the independence of the media. We thank the committee and this member once again. The member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. As a former teacher and cadets officer, and as a member of the Standing Committee on National Defense, education of the members of our armed forces is very important to me. We should offer our soldiers many varied learning opportunities that will enhance their military leadership skills. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence update this House on the new partnership that will leverage university expertise on continuing education for our soldiers in the Montreal area? The Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague from Marc-Aurèle-Fortin for his question and for the interest that he has for education in general. Canada's Armed Forces recently signed an agreement with the University of Montreal in order to offer, as of this fall, leadership programs for the regular forces and the reserves. This training is high level and it's offered in a stimulating environment. It will allow participants to acquire skills that would allow them to become better leaders within the armed forces and within civil society.
Thornhill.
So, Mr. Speaker, the minister least capable of relating to the hard-scrabble realities of middle-class small business, the Liberals' chief tax loophole closer, is finally closing a loophole through which he moved his great wealth in clear violation of the spirit of ethical guidelines and the law. But there's still the minister's unreported private corporation in France. Mr. Speaker, can the Finance Minister tell us whether he's been served notice by the Ethics Commissioner of his violation of the Conflict of Interest Act?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I've reported to this House, I disclosed all of my assets to the Ethics Commissioner, and as I found out recently, we did have an administrative oversight around the approach that I took to actually purchase a house. So we've corrected that oversight, and I've worked with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that that is clear.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member.
Order. Order.
The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, cheesemakers in Lac-Saint-Jean and all of Quebec still have not been compensated for losses they will experience with the free trade agreement with the European Union. Supply management is being threatened by the TPP and NAFTA. And what is the Prime Minister doing? Taking selfies. What is the Prime Minister waiting for? Rather than playing at being a star, what is he waiting for to send a clear message to American and Asian negotiators? Without supply management, there is no negotiation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question. And in fact, I think my honourable colleague is well aware I've announced in this House that the Government of Canada has put in place a $350 million package for the dairy industry and the supply management sector. $250 million goes to the dairy farmers for innovation, and $100 million go to the processing sector. This government, Mr. Speaker, has supported and will continue to support supply management in this country.
The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île. Again, words that say nothing. What are they doing, the 40 members of the shadow cabinet of the Liberals, the 40 members of Quebec's province that are in the Liberal government? Everybody's paying attention to NAFTA negotiations, and other negotiations are taking place on the future. Order.
Félicitations, mais c'est le temps d'écouter.
It is time to listen. The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île has the floor. Listen, please. While the eyes of the agricultural world are paying attention, are on NAFTA negotiations, other negotiations are being done on the future of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and supply management is still on the table. We ask if the Minister of International Trade will commit to not using supply management as a bargaining chip in negotiations for the Trans-Pacific Partnership at the expense of Quebec. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have said so. The Prime Minister has been clear. We will always defend supply management. We've said it in English and in French. Mr. Speaker, the 40 Liberal MPs on this side of the House are working for farmers throughout the entire country, and I can assure you that we will always be there to defend supply management. We have always worked for farmers. People know it, Mr. Speaker, and on this side of the House, we don't just ask questions, we act.
Order. Alors, I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of the recipients of the 2017 Governor General's Awards in commemoration of the Persons case: Betsy Bury, Elizabeth Sheehy, Micheline Dumont, Linda Slanina, Melissa Serafadine, and Dr. Ramona Lumpkin. And now I believe the Honourable House Leader of the official opposition has the usual Thursday question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do have the usual Thursday question, and I will keep it short today. I will just ask the House Leader if she could please tell us what she has planned, what the government has planned for the rest of this week and for next week. Thank you.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. President.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we will continue the debate we began this morning on the Conservative Party's opposition motion. Tomorrow we'll begin debate on Bill C-46, the impaired driving bill, at report stage.
Next Monday, shall be an allotted day. For the remainder of next week, we will resume debate on Bill C-46 and also commence debate at report stage of Bill C-49, transportation modernization. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.